Welcome back to Couchin, Courtside, you guys. My name is Johnny. As always, I am here with John. John, how are we doing today?
John, how you doing? Johnny, how you doing, man?
Doing really well. So, we got a lot of basketball stuff to talk to, among other news. But first, if you guys are listening to this, you will know that John's birthday will actually have happened. So, happy early birthday, John.
Thank you, sir.
We came down yesterday, socially distanced, to celebrate your birthday. Roman, Dakota is just in love with Roman right now, and this somewhat is giving her a little bit baby fever. So hopefully that kind of quells down a little bit. you know, so here's my biggest question: your wife, I love her. She was trying to make this a surprise party, and then on Saturday it wasn't a surprise anymore. So what happened?
She can't keep surprises for the life of her. If she has something kind of built up, she just can't help herself. It's like pouring water that's at like where water's at the brim of a cup, and she's just overexcited, and so you're just pouring more and more water, and so she basically just spills the secret. I will say this though, it was excellent to see you guys. Always good to see you and Dakota and the friends as well. One of the most interesting things that you don't really give any consideration to, pre-COVID, is you used to blow out the candles on a birthday cake. And when you think about that today, like, that's fucking nasty. and so what we did as an alternative, and Dakota, she had suggested this, was, just take a paper plate, right, and just kind of fan out the flames. And like, why haven't we been doing this for the other 30 years of our lives? Why are we blowing on the freaking cake?
Oh no, I hear you. I mean, those people that gave the cake, they provided candles. I probably shouldn't have got the sparkling ones that just sparkled everywhere. Should have gotten the block ones, but Dakota's all like, I don't know if they make the numbers 100 altogether. So I know she's making old jokes on us. So, but yeah, like I said, it was great to see you guys, and it's great to celebrate your birthday. So if you guys want to wish John a happy birthday, the only way you're going to get to him is on Twitter. So it's at jspeed04. So, but we're moving alongside that. There's a lot of news that's going on. We're about a quarter of the season in 2021. John, so when we think about the quarter of the season right now, what is your biggest takeaway so far?
It really interesting is how top heavy the Western Conference is right now. Just looking at the schedules here, and it's being dominated by the Lakers, the Clippers, and Utah. And what the fuck? Utah came out of nowhere, right? I mean, I saw a stat earlier today where they made, I think, an NBA league record 265 threes in the month of January. I don't think anybody saw that coming from this squad. I mean, I know bringing back Bogdanovic, because I know he was injured last year, was going to be a big deal. But the funniest thing is that over the summer, or shouldn't say summer, over the winter leading up to the season, Gobert was a meme, right? He got all that money from the squad, from the team, and everyone thought it was a huge overpay, and here they are with the second or third best record in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, if the Jazz capitalize on this, and I would say that if the Jazz just makes it to the Western Conference Finals by the end of the year, that contract with him and Donovan Mitchell is already worth it. Mike Conley is balling right now, and it might be attrition from last year, whether he was still recovering from his injury or still learning the playbook, but you can tell him playing with Gobert, with Donovan Mitchell, that like he controls and runs that offense, and that team needed that, and it's working beautifully for them right now.
Absolutely. 100% agree. I mean, Mike Conley has always been a heady, smart guy, a quintessential point guard as well, right? Knows when to shoot, knows when to pass, a marginally good 3-point shooter, good from the free throw line, and generally outright one of the funnest series that we have seen in years last year versus the Nuggets, right?
Yeah, it's by far the most fun. It's just Jamal Murray just barely topped off over Donovan Mitchell. If not, Donovan Mitchell will probably be the talk of the offseason so far. When it comes to me, the biggest surprise so far this year is I thought that the 76ers were going to take a little bit regression. But Morey came in, Doc Rivers came in, and we had these questions about how are we going to build the team. They still have Ben Simmons, but this is by far Joel Embiid's team. And Doc Rivers made sure of that. Like, he basically told Ben Simmons that you're good, you're reliable on defense, you're going to play point guard, but you are going to be option number 3 because Embiid is option number 1. And Tobias Harris, this guy, I know he's a regular season stud, but I feel like we're now kind of underrating him for him not doing so well when it comes to always being in the postseason with other teams, specifically, last year and then with the Clippers. But this 76ers team just feels very different, and it looks very scary to fully utilize Joel Embiid this year.
Yeah, I want to kind of double click on your point about Tobias Harris. Johnny, do you know what they say about tofu? About how tofu takes on the taste of all the food that you actually cook with it, right? All the different tastes of it.
Yes.
Tobias Harris is kind of the same way, right? If you put him with a good team, he's going to be a very good player. If you put him in a marginal team, he's going to be a marginal player. So I think just kind of to your point, to your credit, with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid just clicking all cylinders right now, it basically gives him an opportunity, meaning Harris, to make better decisions, make quicker decisions. And that shot that he hit versus the Lakers last week, it was a phenomenal shot. I mean, he took that shot with no hesitation at all and hit nothing but net. So good for him. I do want to push back ever so slightly, though, just on the Sixers. Looking at their schedule right now, they basically have beaten Charlotte, Washington, Miami. These are teams that have been largely without their best players because of COVID. Charlotte notwithstanding, they're an up-and-coming team, but they've played Charlotte twice. They won both of those games. They played Washington twice. They won both of those games. They played Miami twice. One of those games went to OT, and I don't think Jimmy Butler played in that game. Now, JoJo had a big game. He had 45 and 16. I mean, a huge game. This is back on January 12th. But again, their season has kind of been slightly a little easy for me. Their record's kind of been it's kind of marred by the fact that they've had a pretty easy schedule.
I'll agree with you with that. I think the biggest thing is that even with their simple schedule so far, they've taken advantage of what should be wins for them.
I agree with that.
I was thoroughly impressed at how Joel Embiid today was not playing against the Pacers. And they were down by like as much as 20 points into that game. But their fourth quarter with their defense and the Pacers just going cold just came back and won the game. And Embiid was not there. It's indicative of how this team kind of rallies among each other. And like I said, I don't think Doc Rivers is a very good coach when it comes to X's and O's. I do think, though, that he's a very good motivator. And this team coming from Brett Brown, who Brett Brown is supposed to be an X and O type of guy, and they kind of changed the philosophy when Doc Rivers got there. I can kind of see the rallying cry that Doc Rivers does, and it's paying dividends right now so far.
Absolutely. I mean, they also had some really good offseason pickups as well, right? I mean, they brought in Dwight Howard, which is a very underrated pickup and a good backup for Joel Embiid. They also brought in Danny Green, right? Basically two-time defending champion with the Lakers and Toronto Raptors. So they definitely had some really good pickups in the offseason as well. And it's definitely starting to show. And I do generally agree with you. You don't judge a team based off of what they don't do. You judge them based off of what they do. And to your credit, they have been beating the teams they're supposed to be beating. If they were losing those games, I think it would say more about them.
We're going to do a little quick segment. It's called Fill in the Blank. I'm going to give out a statement. We're just going to fill in the blank. So, John, the first statement, fill in this blank. At the end of the 2021 season, Jokic will what?
Be in the top 3 for MVP. Tonight, they had a big win tonight. So, again, for the listeners, they actually did beat Utah, and I think they broke their 11-game winning streak. And Jokic put up 47 today, 47 and 12. He's had 20 double-doubles over the season. I think he's having an absolutely phenomenal season. I think he just might be hurt a little bit by the fact that, not meaning injured, but hurt by the fact that they lost Jeremy Grant, and that kind of messed up a bit of their continuity, meaning the Nuggets. And so that messed up their team record. And so if they can't crack the top 4, unless he has a historic, Russell Westbrook triple-double season, I don't think that he's going to be seen by the media. He doesn't have that narrative as being the first guy to get a triple-double, but he's not, top 1, 2, or 3 in the West. So he has to finish. The Nuggets have to finish in the top 3 in order for him to be, 1 or 2 in the MVP voting. And like we stated at the top of this pod, I mean, right now the West is being dominated by the Lakers, Clippers, and Utah.
So I think Jokic will win the MVP and lose in the first round. And I'll tell you why. Because right now, I just don't see them overtaking Utah, Lakers, and Clippers. That puts them in the 4th seed. And let me tell you something. If they're in the 4th seed, there's a high likely chance they might see San Antonio, they might see Portland, they might see Phoenix. Shoot, if Curry keeps completing this back with the Warriors, they might see the Warriors. And I have a very iffy feeling that Jokic is he's being asked to do a lot, and he's showing you how great of a player he is. And he's showing the world that there's still players out there that can still play back to the basket. You just got to be a little bit more skilled about it, right? What I'm afraid of is that Jamal Murray and the rest of this team is not going to take that next step to where he's going to get stopped in the first round. And that, it would be so sad, because the last time that an MVP got stopped in the first round was Dirk Nowitzki. And that hurt him a while. It hurt his perception until he won that championship in 2011, right? And so I don't want that perception to hurt Jokic, but at the same time, I have a big feeling that that might be the case this year.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where you're coming from with that. But again, I think you kind of agree with me with regards to the fact that there's just a lot of competition in the West, and it's so volatile. You never know who's going to do what in the West. Not to mention, I mean, the East, I know we're kind of talking about a different conference, but the East has been ravaged by COVID. This hasn't really started to impact the West yet, and we don't know what can end up happening out here as well. I mean, all it takes is for one person, on the Nuggets or any of the top teams to be exposed to COVID, and that just kind of throws a monkey wrench into your season. So this season, more than any in recent history, has been just the most difficult to predict to begin with.
Lakers' chances of going back-to-back as NBA champions are
lowering by the day. Just because of the fact that I don't know if they have that same toughness about them as they had last year. I do like the pickups of Dennis Schroeder. I think he's a phenomenal player. I told one of my buddies that, who thinks he's trash, meaning Schroeder, if I were a professional player, Dennis Schroeder is the guy who I'd pat my game after. I mean, he's quick. He's not a very tall guy, but he has, really long arms, plays like Rondo, but he's much faster than Rondo probably ever was. Not the same vision as Rondo. I like the pickup of Marc Gasol. But the problem is that when they lost Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee and Avery Bradley and Danny Green, they lost a ton of athleticism. And that same athleticism, what allowed them to be very tough on defense. Yeah, they had a lot of fouls during the game, but they were just destroying people on the glass. They got lots of blocks. Those blocks turned into fast break points. And we're not really seeing that this year. And also something that really concerns me too is that Anthony Davis, his points are down like 4 points per game year over year. He's taking fewer shots. He's shooting terribly from the free throw line. And LeBron James is a year older. We need AD to take the leap, like you said about Jamal Murray, and he hasn't quite done that. So who's going to fill those shoes for a progressively aging LeBron James?
The Lakers' chances of going back to back hinges on how Anthony Davis does this. You are right with the Lakers getting a lot of new pieces, but when it comes to their center position, there's no Dwight Howard back there anymore to kind of relieve him. Really, it's just Marc Gasol that's kind of there. We know there's Montrezl Harrell, but let's be real. When Montrezl Harrell comes in, he's here to get buckets,
turnstile,
get rebounds, right?
Turnstile on defense,
right? So that is asking a lot more of Anthony Davis to kind of do defensive work on there. Yes, his points are down. Field goal percentage a little bit up. He's not taking as the same amount of threes, and he's not getting to the foul line as much, right? Last year, he was averaging close to 9, and right now he's only averaging about 5.5 up to 6. And he's only making 70% of them.
Right.
Last year, he was making 84%. Right. So I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know if it's Vogel just, making sure that with the quick turnaround time from finals to the start of this season that he's taking it slow. But there is some lethargy that is a part of AD, and he has to be like LeBron. Once we get to the finals, LeBron will take anybody when it comes to a 7-game series if he has the help. But to get them there, LeBron cannot be the same workhorse as he's been for the past 10 plus years. Like AD needs to kind of get on that. And so for them to go back to back, AD does need to be more vocal when it comes to the rest of the season.
100% agree.
So fill in the blank. The Nets' biggest weakness is
defense. I mean, come on. All right. So again, for the listeners tonight, you guys are listening to this after the recording is already completed, but they had a game tonight against the Washington Wizards, who have now beat them 2 times. They gave up 149 points to the Washington Wizards tonight. Russell Westbrook had his best game of the season by far, dropped 41, 10, and 8. Bradley Beal and Russ both hit very timely threes. KD is he's one of the best offensive players I have ever seen in my life. It is literally unfair how good KD is in terms of his offensive versatility, the ability to shoot over players, the ability to get to his spot. Very intelligent with his rip through move. He shoots free throws at a super high clip. I mean, he's typically a 50, 40, 90 guy, but he is not a defensive stalwart, right? He needs someone to kind of back him up. There was a play tonight where Mo Wagner on the Wizards basically took KD to the basket and like he put KD on his ass, right? You're expecting KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, who will all get buckets, don't get me wrong, to basically be great defenders, and that's not possible. Last week in our pod with Joe, we talked about the fact that you can only have 5 guys on the floor at a time. And so if 3 of those 5 guys are bad or below average defensively, you're going to have a hard time. And if they're getting worked on the defensive end, that is eventually also going to impact their offensive capabilities as well. So they need to do something. They need to make a trade. I know they signed Iman Shumpert today, but they need to make a trade.
Yeah, I hear you. I do agree with you. It is defense. I was absolutely shocked how, first off, so the sequence of events really is Beal and Westbrook hit 2 timely threes to put them up 1. Beal's shot was just a good shot. I'm like, he's shooting it over 2 people, whatever. Like, that went in. It's the inbounding play afterwards. I think it was it TCL or was it Joe Harris? The guy comes in, and rather than wait and try to get it he was trying to pass it to TCL. That's what it was. And he just fumbled it, and then Westbrook just caught to shoot it. And it's just, those are kind of like some of the growing pains that I know these Nets need to do. But at the same time, you gave up 149 points to the Wizards. And let me tell you, one of my fantasy basketball chats sent me a tweet from Rob, and it's recording the reactions of Bradley Beal in that first half. That man did not want to be there. It seemed like he quit on the game already, and they came back and won. That is some amazing stuff, right? It's like, I thought this game tonight would have been the game where the Wizards lose big. This is when Bradley Beal is going to do what disgruntled superstars do and start probably trying to get traded. But the fact that they won this game saved it for like another week, right? So, I mean, and I'm telling you, Westbrook is I love his intensity and I love his love for basketball. He's such an inefficient basketball player. And so the fact that they just willed this game to victory should scare people that think the Nets are just a shoo-in to get to the NBA Finals. It's that kind of mentality that kind of makes me think that, we have KD and Kyrie, but are these guys going to be able to tell the rest of the team, hey, we got to stop this stuff, right? Like, we should be handling our own business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, man. I mean, Bradley Beal, by the way, this guy is going off right now. He's averaging 35 a game. Jesus Christ. I mean, what you said about Russ is so true. I mean, he's a very inefficient ball player, but he's that guy who circles the game on the calendar, right? I mean, he's basically playing against his old starting 5 on the freaking OKC. So, and Jeff Green, Harden, and KD. So this is definitely a game that Russ had circled on his calendar. And for him to basically be able to play this team a second time, hit that shot, get those stats in this game obviously meant a whole lot to them. But let's also not forget the fact that Luala Cabarro had a chance to win this game, and he missed a bunny layup. And Kyrie Irving definitely should have been called for traveling out of bounds because he was basically tiptoeing the out of bounds line when he was inbounding the ball. So they got a pass, and they still lost this game.
that whole sequence was funny because when they went to the replay, I was all like, "Are we replaying that travel, or are we replaying? What are we replaying? Oh,
Possibly
it's how much."
basket interference
Yeah.
or
So,
time on the clock. Yeah.
and at the end, it was because when Bradley Beal got fouled, they were just trying to check the time, and I'm all like, "There's like 3 calls that was being missed
Mm-hmm.
during that time," and that's a larger issue with NBA replay that they're we're not going to talk about it, but they're very light years behind some of the other sports when it comes to the replay system as of right now. So, because there probably should have been a little bit more time, but that's because Kyrie traveled on the inbounds. He shouldn't have done that. Makes sense. But yeah, let's do the last fill in the blank. John, the best player on the Boston Celtics is
Brown. I can't believe that I'm saying this because at the beginning of the season, when the Harden sweepstakes was on, and we all know that Danny Ainge always is in the mix somehow, but he's never going to do shit because he's Danny Ainge. But I thought that Jason Tatum was definitely going to be the guy that they would keep, but Jaylen Brown has been unbelievable this year. Now he's shooting 44% from the field, so he's not having a super efficient year, but he's averaging 26 per game and he's making some unreal shots. I mean, I'm really, really just impressed with how his game has progressed. I did not know that he was as talented offensively, and it just goes to show how much time he's put in the gym. We've known that Jason Tatum was going to be that dude, right? Ainge famously traded the number 1 pick, which ended up being Markelle Fultz, to basically trade down for Jason Tatum. So we knew he was that guy already. He dunked on LeBron in his rookie season. He was giving the Cavs the business back in 2018. But I'm really, really impressed with what I've seen from Brown. What are your thoughts on that, Johnny?
Yeah, it's Jaylen Brown. It's funny. He's like, so Brown and Tatum were drafted 1 year apart. They both got drafted in with the 3rd overall pick. You asked me this 2 years ago because there was like a couple trades going on. I would have packaged Jaylen Brown anywhere because I saw where the potential is, but I didn't know if he can fulfill the potential. Now, I do think Jason Tatum has the higher ceiling, but if he doesn't get to that ceiling, Jaylen Brown probably is a little bit. Jaylen Brown has the higher floor to me, and this year shown alone that Tatum missed a lot of games due to COVID, which really sucks, right? But Jaylen Brown was there; he was picking up the slack, and the scoring. It made me realize that I think Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens knew it was a mistake to bring Gordon Hayward to this team, because this team without Gordon Hayward for the past 2 years, we would have seen this development even further probably into it. It's just that, having Gordon Hayward there, which is having an outstanding season, and, I'm very happy for the guy, but I think he's the one that was holding up because it diverted a lot of attention away from Brown to kind of showcase what he can do, because it just became Hayward and Tatum rather than being Tatum and Brown.
Yeah, absolutely. And one area that I think actually separates Tatum and Brown as well, and that I definitely give the nod to Brown, because Tatum is definitely the better shooter and I think the better scorer. And I 100% agree with you that he has the better ceiling. And I think he'll reach that potential as well by virtue of the fact they gave him $192 million. However, I think Brown has much better fundamentals and footwork than Tatum does. And so when I watch him, he does those turnaround jumpers, and he has the fancy layups, and he can basically pull up from off balance all the time. Not to say that Tatum can't do this either, but their stats are relatively similar, even though they kind of play at a different position. But again, just the fundamentals of the game, I think Brown has down a bit better than Tatum actually does. In Tatum's favor, I mean, the kid essentially is 22. He grew 2 freaking inches off season. He's 6'10", 6'11" now. So just unfair. Wonderful genes in that family.
All right, so we'll do another segment. We're going to call this Real or No. So I'm going to throw out a couple teams, and, I'll tell you where they're ranked right now in the season, and we'll see if their trend is going up or down. So the Pacers, they're 11-8. They're tied for 3rd in the Eastern Conference. Are they real, or are they pretenders?
Let me ask you this: Are you saying real in the terms of can they potentially win a championship, or real in terms they can play spoiler?
Real if they can play spoiler.
They can definitely play spoiler. They can mess around, and I mean, like we just talked about with the Nets, they're built as a defensive team, and they have a very excellently fundamentally sound point guard in Malcolm Brogdon, who can definitely defend Kyrie. I think they can definitely play spoiler.
I agree with you there. Brogdon is the revelation, the one that Milwaukee is going to keep shaking their head to this day that they probably should have resigned him and not get rid of him. But him with Sabonis, which at this trajectory, I mean, I might sound. No, I'm not going to sound that blahs about it. But I mean, if Sabonis keeps this up, he is going to be better than his father. We already know he's athletically better than his father. His father's always been the better passer. But I mean, this guy is doing work right now. And he was drafted, I think, in like the mid to 20s, which surprises me of how well that he's doing right now. But yeah, I think what we're seeing of the Pacers now. Oh, and let me not forget, Miles Turner is a beast on defense.
Mr. Plumlee or Mr. Pineapple.
That man just protects the paint. I wish he can get more offensive looks, but I mean, the guy will always protect the paint when it comes to that stuff there.
Absolutely. Not to mention he can hit a corner three. So he basically, again, if they end up playing the Nets or even if they end up playing the Heat or the Sixers, he can pose some problems to those teams that have big men because he can draw them out a bit further.
The Phoenix Suns, are they real or are they no? Right now they're tied for 6th in the Western Conference right now.
I'm going to say no. I will say this. The Suns didn't screw up basically because we're now seeing DeAndre Ayton, how good he's actually been. So they can't look at themselves and shoot themselves for not picking Luka Doncic. But I just don't know if they are where they actually need to be. I thought that we see a bit more out of Book this year. And I thought that CP3 has him over 500, which is great. But I just don't know if they are real in this, once again, very top-heavy Western Conference.
I think they're real for the position they're at. I really do think they are the 6th, 7th best team in this league, primarily because even though Book has not been as bubble book, as we say, kind of in here, but Chris Paul has been a revelation for them. I think Chris Paul has unlocked a lot of what Ayton should be. But Mikal Bridges, man, this dude is such a good find for the Suns.
Oh, yeah.
He can score. He can play defense. He is the guy that will you put on the other team's best player and you kind of just hope for the best because he is that good to kind of just leave by himself. But as a 6th best team, 7th best team in there, I think that's actually a really good indicator of like who they are.
Let me ask you this, because they had the chance to keep this player. Would you rather have Matthias Thybulle or would you rather have Mikal Bridges?
Mikal Bridges. I like Matthias Thybulle.
Did they draft him on draft night?
They did.
They traded him, let him go.
Yeah. I like Thybulle, and I think he's going to fit really. I mean, he's doing really well for the 76ers. But Mikal Bridges is the guy that you believe in so much that you didn't blink an eye when Oubre just left. You didn't re-sign him, right? And this is a joke with all the group me messages I have on a fantasy, but it's a daily reminder that Oubre is trash, fantasy-wise. He's not that good, you guys. Stop falling for him just because he blow kisses to fans. and he could do Naruto runs, right? Stop it. Miami Heat, they're 7-12 right now, 12th in the Eastern Conference. Is this for real or is this not?
This is not for real. Again, a team that has been absolutely decimated by COVID due to the very lax and ridiculous social distancing rules by the governor of Florida. I apologize for interjecting my politics into this, but missing Jimmy Butler, missing Tyler Hero, who has been exposed again apparently to COVID, so he might have to quarantine again. Is definitely causing issues for them. I mean, Jimmy came back last night and put up a cool 30, I think 39 and 8 on like 10 or 14 shooting. So and I think he lost 15 pounds and he didn't even, miss a beat. So this is definitely not for real. I think that given the opportunity to get back to healthy, especially once the league kind of sees where they are in the second half, if they can sneak into the playoffs, they can definitely still play the spoiler.
Yeah, I think where they're at right now won't be where they end up. They're going to make the playoffs as long as people don't get COVID, right? So Jimmy Butler kind of showed you without him, people like Tyler Hero and especially Bam, their numbers have increasingly went up. Usage went up, but they weren't winning as many games. And it kind of shows you the first game back that Jimmy came back and they won that, like, he really is the glue guy. Like, He might not necessarily be the most talented out of all of them now, but he is the one that kind of stabilizes everything that happens within that franchise, and that's actually a good thing to recognize that in Jimmy. So I don't think this is for real. I think this is just a blip. All right, John. So the last team that I'll ask, San Antonio Spurs. They're actually tied for 8th in the Western Conference right now at 11-9. Are they for real or are they not?
I will say that they are for real just by virtue of the fact they're coached by Popovich. Any Popovich team is a team that I would definitely be afraid of just by virtue, again, of the fact that he's the X&O champ in the league, probably next to Rick Carlisle. He's seen so many different types of plays. He's been in every single scenario. He's had some of the most talented players play for him in the past. And yes, he may not have that same talent today, but he's seen so much that if I were the Clippers or if I were Utah and they ended up in 7th, meaning the Spurs, that's not a team I want to see in the first round, especially with DeRozan finally starting to increase his range. Who would have thought taking one step back, and he'd be a much more efficient player. He's in a contract year this year, and he knows that he needs to put up big numbers to make sure he can remain a viable player in the modern NBA because no one is shooting mid-range jump shots anymore besides him. So I definitely think this team has the ability to be for real. And also, DeJounte Murray has been phenomenal this year. That kid, I think he's such a good player, and I think he has amazing upside.
Yeah, I think they're for real too. I think they are probably in the top 8. It's funny. I'm looking at their offensive rating and defensive rating. 15th out of 30 in both of them. So they are literally right in the middle of the pack when it comes to the whole league. But like you said, DeRozan has, Pop has helped him evolve his game. He still is probably in the NBA right now, I would say top 3 when it comes to people hitting a mid-range jump shot. I'd be afraid of him shooting that mid-range jump shot, but he's able now to expand his game. The development of DeJounte Murray has been a great blessing for the Spurs. Same thing with Keldon Johnson. That guy.
Oh yeah, that kid can hoop.
Yeah, that guy came out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, okay, this is definitely a San Antonio Spur player because I didn't expect him, and I probably should have, right? So if they continue with this pace, I believe they're going to make the playoffs, and they'll be fodder for the Clippers or the Lakers in the first round. But I would not trust myself if I'm playing against Pop in any playoff series, especially in the first round.
Absolutely. Also, shout out to Lonnie Walker Jr. The 4th as well. I mean, he's definitely shown that he has the ability to pull up from 3 as well. So, again, I would never recommend anyone sleep on a Pop team.
The NBA has just released their, you can now vote for NBA All-Star voting. It is early, but like I said, it's a quarter of the season in. I believe it's 2 guards, 3 forwards that you can kind of put in. So, John, if you were to cast your first ballot right now, let's deal with the Western Conference first. Who are the 5 players you would have in the All-Star game?
So let's go ahead and take a look at the forwards first. And this is kind of going to be blasphemous for me because where I land in terms of my favorite player of all time. But I'm going to say Kawhi Leonard is going to be my top pick. If they end up doing the whole team captains thing this year, if the Clippers end up having the top record in the West by the time this comes around, I would say Kawhi is going to be the number 1 pick for a forward in the East. I'm also going to go with LeBron James, obviously, because I'm a homer. And the fact that the guy is 36 years old in his 18th season, still putting up 25, 5, and 5, which is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, who would have thought that this guy would be able to not only play this long, but play this long at such a high level, still being effective on his team and still being in the MVP conversation at the twilight of his career. So I would go there. Who I'm not going to pick, Anthony Davis. And that's because, again, I think he just needs to be a lot more aggressive this year. And I'm really disappointed with the way that he's playing. But who I would put in his stead, again, because of the whole forward center thing, I put Jokic there just by virtue, again, because Jokic is out there killing it. The numbers that he's putting up for a guy his size, especially from passing, right? I mean, we just talked about Arvydas Sabonis being one of the best passers of all time. I think that Jokic probably has him beat with that now. So those are my top 3 there. My guards, this is where it kind of gets a little hard for me. So let me do this, Johnny. Let me have you give me your 3 first, and then I'll give you my guards.
Cool. So I agree with you of all 3 forwards that you picked. The only person that I would even think to switch out is none. Really, Christian Wood, I would say, is having a phenomenal year, and I think in any other class he probably might make it, but this is an all-star game, and this is who we kind of vote for. And I think Christian Wood continues his pace; he'll be on the bench for that game. But you're right. To me, you have the league MVP as of right now in Joker that should be in there. LeBron is still amazingly great at his age, and Kawhi is, he's starting to fulfill what he's been coming in for the Clippers to do. So yeah, I agree with the forward slots for all three of them.
Okay, so let me go ahead and give you my guards. And, it's interesting because typically speaking, the West has always been so stacked with guards that it was someone got snubbed. So I'm going to do something a little different this year. The first one I'm going to pick just because he has a better record and he's putting up better numbers between the two of them. I'm going to give you Damian Lillard. Okay, so that's going to be my first guard. My second guard, though, is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and take Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, again, they have the second best record in the West right now. He's putting up just barely above league average on PER. He's at an 18.5, and I know that PER is not the end-all, be-all, but he's putting up 24 points a game. He's averaging 5 assists, 4 rebounds for a team that is the second best team in the West. So, and he's doing it in relatively low minutes as well, 33 minutes a game. So I'm going to go with Donovan Mitchell as my starting two guard.
This is where we disagree because the two players you have, I don't have at all. Here's my two guards. The first guard is Stephen Curry. I think, when we had that podcast earlier, I just didn't see how that team is going to be better, even with a guy like Steph Curry. And he's showing you right now that him being on the floor just elevates everybody, and I'm starting to see the dividends of that. And it's hard for me to leave him off. I love Dame, but I'm going to put Curry over him. Donovan Mitchell has been doing well with the Jazz, but I think, if anything, I probably would have put a vote for Conley first over Donovan Mitchell. I mean, that sounds blasphemous, but that's the reason why I don't have Donovan Mitchell in. What I do have is the other guy in Dallas. I have Luka Doncic on there. He is still balling. I know the team, the Mavericks, are kind of so far this year, but that man is not the reason why they are losing at all. He's a walking triple-double alert, just like Jokic is as well. So as of right now, those would be my two starting guards in the West.
Okay, and I'm not mad at you at all with either of those two picks, to be honest with you. I'm just rewarding the players who are basically putting up not only just the numbers, but also they are contributing to their team's success. And don't get me wrong, I think we all agreed, again, in our prior podcast, that Stephen Curry is the ultimate ceiling raiser, right? So, he's basically taking a situation and, he put up 62 earlier in the year. The guy's still shooting nuts from three. I think he's averaging, 29 a game or 28 a game on 50, 40, 90, like it's nothing. But they're eighth in the West right now. And I know that injuries have a lot to do with that, but I got to reward the guys who have better records right now.
So we'll go with the East. We'll start with the guards. I'll kind of lead off here. So the two guards I have from the East, one, we just talked about him earlier. It's Bradley Beal. Oh, yeah. Like he's locked in. That man is averaging almost 35 points a game so far. 5 boards, 4 assists, and shooting at 50% for a guard. That's pretty amazing to me. And whether we agree with him taking the money and just living in Washington, that dude is just getting buckets left and right now. Without him, I'm pretty sure the Wizards would be winless right now. So that's my first guard. The second guard is also another guy we talked about. I believe Jaylen Brown does deserve to get onto the spot this year so far, as we've seen. There's a lot of guards here that I am missing. One just got traded over there, and James Harden. Malcolm Brogdon is having a career year in Indiana. You still got Kyrie. You still got Trae Young. And Zach LaVine is killing it in Chicago. But Jaylen Brown, like I was talked earlier, kept this team afloat with Tatum being out because of COVID. And we're starting to see the real true potential that when it comes to a two-way player, Jaylen Brown is. So those are my two guards so far in the East.
unequivocally agree with you with respect to Bradley Beal. This would be his first All-Star bid. He definitely deserved it last year, and he got snubbed. I don't know why that was the case. I don't know who replaced him last year. It doesn't even matter. He should have been on the team last year. And I agree with you. They would be a winless team, especially in the current state that Russell Westbrook is playing in games where he's not facing his prior teammates. Bradley Beal can do some good for the States right now and use all that money that he took to lobby for DC statehood. So he can go ahead and do something like that. But my second guard, although I agree with you, and we basically just gave Jaylen Brown a tongue bath, I'm going to disagree with you with the fact that he should be the starting two guard. I definitely think he deserves a spot on the roster, especially because, again, as you mentioned, he basically held it down. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is going to be my other guard as well. I mean, he's a defensive stalwart. I mean, he's at word for a second time in this pod. Name me a guy outside of LeBron James that is as fast as LeBron James was, has the same vision as LeBron James, as good of a defender as LeBron James was at the same age. Ben Simmons is such a unique player. He only comes once every once and again. He is who we thought Zion would be, right? He may not be as athletic as Zion is, but he's quicker, has much better vision. And again, their team is at the top of the conference. So I'm definitely going to go ahead and take Ben Simmons in this case here.
No problem. He wasn't even on my radar, to be honest with you. I mean, I was like, oh, maybe Kyrie get there. Trae Young. No. Okay.
No.
All right. So we're moving over to the forward section. I'll give you my three. I think we can all agree Embiid needs to be there. If Jokic is one side of the West, the East is Jokic. Is Joel Embiid. That guy has, like I said, been phenomenal this year, and he's very deserving of kind of like the spot that's there. The last two here, and keep in mind, this is my voting ballot. People are going to not like, because I'm leaving a lot of people out. And it's because these two guys have like really helped their team become what they are so far. One is Gordon Hayward. I believe that guy should be there because he is coming back and playing like he was in Utah, and it's actually helping the Hornets win just because of his aggressiveness, both on offensively putting the pressure on people. He's dishing out. He's getting rebounds. I believe that as of right now, he should be there. This last one is probably going to irk some of you guys out here. Is Julius Randle. Look, Julius Randle is right now averaging a double-double. 22-11 right now. But this team is close to 500. I made this prediction like at the beginning of the year that they would be contending for a playoff spot. I was joking, kind of, because I was believing in Tibbs, but I didn't think that they were actually playing not only sound defense, but they're actually getting buckets. And Julius Randle is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that. So apologies to guys like Jason Tatum, Greek Freak, Jeremy Grant, Kevin Durant, Vukovic. For this first round of voting, give me Randle, give me Hayward with Embiid.
So let's go ahead and start where we agree. I definitely agree with Joel Embiid. He's having the best season of his career by far, putting up monster numbers. Actually looks like he gives a damn. Actually looks like he cares about his body, which is really important. The best stat or the best thing that you can do for any profession that you're in, especially as an athlete, is your availability. And so if he can be available in most of his games, which he has been most for this year, with the exception of, I think, tonight and a couple of games ago where he hurt his back, that's a big win for Philly. He has to make sure he stays in game shape the entire time. But you're crazy if you don't put Kevin Durant in there. I mean, I understand. I appreciate what Gordon Hayward is doing. My apologies to Joe Lee for talking all that shit about Gordon Hayward because I thought that he was washed. I honestly did. I thought he got the bag in Boston and that basically, he was going to be just securing his financial freedom for the rest of his career. And that was it. Then he ends up, right. Then he ends up leaving and ends up going to Charlotte. And we're like, what the hell is Michael Jordan's obsession with these players that kind of seem to come from the same place? And he's killing it. But Kevin Durant is you got to remember, the guy tore his Achilles in a game that was basically theirs to lose or theirs to win, versus the Raptors back in 2018. And so to see the fact that he's putting up, I think 30, like 5 and 7, post Achilles tear, it's absolutely stunning. Now, it's not necessarily his fault that his team is shit on defense. I think they probably made the wrong trade. They should have kept Jared Allen. They should have given up DeAndre Jordan. But obviously, the reason why they probably did that is because no one wanted DeAndre Jordan. They wanted Jared Allen. But that just goes to show why I think they're having so many problems, meaning the Nets and the defensive end. I don't put that on KD. KD is a scorer. You bring him to score, he's going to get you buckets. So KD's my number 2 guy. My third guy in the East is going to be, I like your pick for Julius Randle because, again, they have no reason or purpose even being here. But I've still got to go with Giannis. Giannis is still having a good year. I'm really disappointed in the fact that we've talked about this ad nauseum, that he still hasn't begun to blossom as a player. I mean, I don't know if you recall, Johnny, and I'm sure you do actually. You know, when guys would go deep in the playoffs back in the mid to early aughts, or I'm sorry, mid to early teens, excuse me, what you would see them do is they were tired of losing. They would go see Hakeem Olajuwon. You would see them working on their footwork. Amari Stoudemire, Dwight Howard, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony. You saw the work that these guys put in. They wanted it so bad. I'm not saying that Giannis doesn't want it. I'm just disappointed that this is the 3rd consecutive season that he's come back and he's ran it back the same way. Despite that, though, despite the flaws in his game, he's still putting up 28 a game. He's still a very good defensive player. He's still a better than average passer for a guy who came into the league with absolutely no expectations at all. And he's still the reason why the Bucks, you know, despite the fact they're having a below average season for themselves, are still winning games. So I've got to put Giannis in that 3rd spot.
But yeah, I would agree. If we look on paper, my Eastern Conference team is way worse than what your team is. But like we said before, this is my ballot. I'm going to submit it, and this is what's going to be, right? I like to reward people. It's funny. The West, I like to reward when it comes to the standings. But on the East, it's more like, you know, these guys, I just didn't clearly see them coming through. And 3 of those guys probably aren't going to make it. Well, at least as starters anyway.
Right.
Probably make the team. So
yeah, and let me say this too. All of the guys that you put in there, I agree, should be all-star players. Should they be starters is the question. But I definitely agree. All the players that we picked should be on the team.
All right, guys. So we would be remiss without talking just a little bit about kind of the financial stuff that is happening with the U.S. stock market this past week. Because GameStop has come up. And if any of you guys know me, I've worked for GameStop for 6 years. The 5th year, I got like an award and a USB drive celebrating 5 years at GameStop, which I didn't know people still made USB drives that only had 16 gigabytes on it. You know, like, what am I going to do with 16 gigabytes? Right? But a lot of it has happened. John, do you have like kind of like the Cliff Notes version of what is happening at Wall Street so far?
Yeah, so basically the whole situation is this. You have a situation where GameStop is a part of a dying industry of brick and mortar, unfortunately. People can buy consoles these days, which are very difficult to find, the Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5, as well as the Nintendo Switch. You can buy your games digitally on those platforms, so you don't necessarily need to go to brick and mortar stores to purchase your games like you used to. I'm sure Johnny can attest to the fact, having worked for GameStop, that their bread and butter was used games, right? Not necessarily new games. They were able to get crazy markups on them because they would pay you $3.27 for Madden 2020, and they would turn around and sell it for, $44.99, which was an absolute ripoff. So what you basically saw investors basically saying, hey, we don't think that this business is going to be around for a long time. So what we're going to do is we're going to borrow against them by shorting their stock. And basically by shorting their stock, what they're doing is they're going to people who hold these stocks and basically saying, let me borrow these stocks from you. Okay. I don't think this company is going to be around for a long time. And what they can do is they can basically put those in the market. And if the price goes down, which they expect that it does, then what they can do is they can buy those shares back at a much lower cost, and they basically profit off of that. And between the profit and the fee that they pay to the investor who they purchased them from, they basically have a tiny little profit or a little sum there. What has happened uniquely with this GameStop situation is that our Wall Street bets on Reddit basically saw that basically these short sellers were over leveraged with 136%, nearly 140% of short sales on GameStop. And so what they saw was basically an opportunity for themselves to basically get in there and say, you know what, we're going to try to squeeze some of these short sellers, because we saw what happened in 2008, and the big guys get bailouts and we get nothing. And so what you basically had is you had diamond hands on Wall Street bets, people going ahead and buying this stock, making the price go up, making these short sellers have to actually buy back that stock at a slightly higher rate so they don't lose their shorts. And every time they buy back a little bit of that stock, meaning these short sellers, the price goes up ever so slightly. And so they don't want to lose all their money, meaning these short sellers, so they have to eventually buy. And so that bids the price up and up and up and up and up and up and up. And I believe late last week, I think GameStop was up to about $450 per share, up from like $5 a share. So that is the situation we find ourselves in right now.
Yeah, as of the talking right now, they're at $325 per share, what they closed at. And so, we record this on Sunday, so it's going to be very interesting what happens on a Monday. Now, what is your biggest takeaway from all this? Because, I, like those people on Wall Street bets, I'm autistic. I'm a retard, as they would say on there. I just like the stock, tendies to the moon, all these buzzwords that it's just funny and nauseating at the same time. But, it's amazing because I started, I want to get more of this news. And so I started watching stuff like Fox Business and CNBC, like for the first time in God knows when, with the volume on, right? Normally people watch those things with the volume off, but I was like, okay, I kind of want to hear it. And the reaction that I would read online is very different from what I would hear in the media, because one is trying to tell us that like shorts are already covered, don't gamble too long, you need to do this, as if it's trying to help what the consumer or the retail trade investors at, while people that are on the Reddit subreddits is basically telling us is that they haven't covered anything just yet, and this is gonna keep skyrocketing to a point where they either gonna keep doubling down or it's gonna come to a government bailout at some point for these hedge funds. So what do you make analytically out of all this? Because this is really above my pay grade. This is more of me sitting on the sidelines, just trying to now finally understand what day trading and investing really is.
The thing is, Johnny, is that there's a large amount of asymmetry of information out there. What I love about this whole thing is just the simple fact that the irony of the entire situation. Everyone says, invest your money early, put it into a stock, and just kind of watch it grow. And then what do? We took our money, we invested in this stock, and we watched it grow. And they're like, no, not like that. Right. It just basically goes to show that the people who are at the top of the country, of the food chain on Wall Street, have access to so much, not only information, but capital as well, with which they can kind of use to kind of gamble. And they do things that they don't want everyone else to do as well, because again, they have that perfect information, and it shows just the hypocrisy of the systems themselves. And so I'm really, even though I think this is eventually going to come crashing down for people who especially get in late, I'm really happy to see that this was exposed, especially by so many blogs and journalists, and it's on NYT and it's everywhere. And so what I make of this is, if you got in early, good for you. I am 100% in your corner, because you made some money doing the exact same thing that people told you that you should have done, and now they're pissed off at you for doing it.
Like I said, for all the people that have stocks in those, maybe not to Pluto, just to the moon. For the love of God, I can only equivalent this from what I'm seeing as gambling, which is when you're on the heater, most people tell you to stay on there, but at some point, the house always wins. So you just got to know when to leave the table, which a lot of these guys are still holding on out to. So hopefully everyone leaves the table, and the trickle down economics, the trickling of wealth. If this is the way to get it done, then I guess that's what they're gonna have to do, right? So before we give our top 5 here, I just want to let you guys know next week podcast is actually going to be a little bit different. I'm just giving one heads up now because we're actually going to have 4 different guests coming on. We're actually going to be doing a redraft of the 2015-2016 NBA rosters. The idea is to see who can be the best GM. We're going to pick 10 players. We're going to do kind of like a snake draft. We're going to have trades, salary cap rules. And it's cool because we're going to get to know some of the people that, we grew up with, that are friends, and kind of see how they think of basketball when it comes to in a group format. But I think this will be a lot of fun. If you're going to listen to the podcast format, that'll be pretty cool. There will be a YouTube video that will be posted of the draft, which will probably come out a couple weeks after, because I got to learn how to edit stuff when it comes to video, but this should be kind of exciting to kind of do. So I just want to give you guys a heads up on that.
Just like college, baby, learning on the fly.
Yeah, exactly. Just to let you guys know, for everyone that's listened, subscribe, download, rate, we want to thank you. Like I said, if you guys ever want to follow us on IG, on Twitter, it's at Couchin Courtside Pod. If you guys ever want to just look at my Twitter line and just see me retweet and like a lot of stuff that are way above my pay grade, is at JNO11. And like I said, this man's birthday is already here when it comes out. So wish him a happy birthday at JSpeed04. So like we end every week, we kind of do our top 5.
Who's your top 5?
And so this week with, my other podcast I'm a part of, Moral Combat, which you can also find on any of your podcasts if you guys want to listen. They're right now arguing who is the best Marvel Cinematic Universe hero. We decided, let's do our top 5 Marvel Cinematic Universe moments. So, John, what is our top 5?
So we're starting from in descending order. We're going to go from, ascending order. Excuse me. We're going to start with number 5. This is courtesy of our good friend Joe Lee, Hulk. I see this as an absolute win. This is a quote that Hulk said basically when they were trying to send Ant-Man back and forth in time through the portal. Number 4, Spider-Man's intro into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He had an awesome suit on the very first time we saw him. He had the eyes that basically moved with the suit as well, which is awesome. Number 3, Thanos looking at the sunrise / sunset, basically just kind of thinking about basically what he's done with 50% of the universe now gone. Number 2, and this one was kind of difficult because it probably could have been a bit higher, but we think that the number 1 moment was better. It was Cap picking up Mjolnir, right? It was basically an ultimate showing of his worthiness to pick up Thor's hammer. A very amazing moment to experience in the theaters with other people, and just a cool moment all along. Number 1, though, and again, the reason why we picked this one is because, again, this movie set the entire thing in motion. And without this movie, we wouldn't be where we are today. It's Tony Stark. I am Iron Man.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.